I didn't even do my intro. Oh my god. Johnny Depp owns my heart. Oh my god. He actually says, "Tell daddy what's wrong." And there is no like 75% breakup. Hello my little raindrops, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to your new home. My name is Desiree. It's absolutely amazing to have you here. I am very excited for this video because I did not record my reading wrap up for December. I was sick. I could not find the energy to do it. I'm so sorry, but I am here to do my wrap up for January. I read 10 books. Now in here I only have 9 because the 10th one I left back at home, but I'm still going to be talking about it. And 2 of these were for classes, so I might not have as much to say about those, but who knows. Anyways, we're gonna hop right into it, and I will this time go in order. I know other times whenever I do my reading wrap-ups I kind of just go all over the place, but I feel like being organized today, so we're gonna go in order. Okay, so the first book that I read in January, I actually started it towards the end of December, and then I think I finished it on January 1st. I always wonder whenever, like, if I start a book in one month and finish it the next month, does it count for the month before or for the, you know, like the current month, the new month? I never know. I usually count it as like, if I finish it in January, it's a book for January, but either way, this is still a book that I read, and it is one of my absolute favorite books of all time now. I am quite actually speechless at how good this book was. It is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by, I'm gonna butcher the name, but Roshani Chokshi? Chokshi? At least I can say that I tried. Either way, I apologize if I mispronounced that, but this book was infinity stars. I'm still figuring out my rating system. I am also learning to be a little bit more critical. For those who have been following me for a very long time, you will know that I am not really one to be critical, both in like reading or life in general. So I think that's probably why I tend to have a hard time like rating a book 2 stars or rating a book beneath 4 stars. But when I do rate a book beneath 4 and 5 stars, it was just like, I could not possibly rate this book higher. Anyways, I'm digressing, but this book, get ready because I have a lot to say about this. First off, it is releasing February 14th. I was sent an ARC by the publisher. I am very, very happy that I received this because, I mean, I probably would have bought it once it was released because look at the cover, right? But I don't know if I would have read it as quickly as I did because this was an ARC, right? It was sent to me. I had to read it before it was published. This book is so spectacular, and I did annotate it differently than I usually annotate. I want to do an updated video of my personal annotating systems and annotating methods. That is like, my annotating 101 video is one of the very first videos that I posted on this channel, and my way of annotating has changed drastically over the last year, so I will make an updated version. But anyways, I annotated this differently, and I think that it allowed me to enjoy the book a little bit better. But anyways, that's for another video. What is this book about? It gives off very gothic vibes. It also focuses a lot around the world of fae, though there are no like, it's in the imaginations of the children in this book. And we get like 2 different timelines. We get the present, when Indigo has grown into an adult, and then we get flashbacks to when she was a kid and her relationship with Azure. Is that how you say it? Again, my French brain wants to say Azure, but I'll say Azure, and if it's not, I'm sorry. But anywho, it starts off with this, the male main character in the story, which is unnamed. He is just like, when it's his chapters, it literally just says the bridegroom. He does not have a name, which like right away it caught my attention. I was intrigued. I can remember correctly, I think he's a historian or something of the sorts. And he reaches out to Indigo Maxwell Castañeda. And she's like this super rich woman that has inherited all the riches of her parents because they passed away when she was a kid. And so he meets with her in Paris. That's like when you see like this woman, Indigo, is very mysterious. She's very... I don't even know how to explain it. You see that Indigo is a very controlling kind of woman. She's very powerful, and she's also very... I don't even know what the word for it is, but she's just such a mysterious character that you can't stop reading to know more about her and her background. And so the bridegroom and Indigo meet, and they kind of have a spark immediately, and they fall in love. And so when you're in the present, you get the bridegroom with Indigo, and you do have their love story through the present telling of the story. But then when you get to the flashbacks, you see how Indigo, when she was about 10 years old, there's this new girl who moves close to her house, the House of Dreams. Her house actually has a name, and it's called the House of Dreams. And so when Azur moves, her mother is not a good mother. Her mother is with a very toxic man, and so Azur doesn't spend as much time home, and when they move, she wanders about, and then she gets to the House of Dreams where she meets Indigo. And the two become absolutely inseparable, to the point that people think they are twins. And then you get to see how twisted their relationship is, because Indigo is absolutely smitten with the idea of Fae, you know, with the other world. And then they're both convinced that they were Fae who were kicked out of the other world into the human world until they could prove themselves worthy of returning to their home, the other world. And so throughout their childhood, you see how they grow into women that are still kind of, I don't know, they were so closed off in their own little world with just each other. As they grow and they become older, where they should be, you know, venturing out, exploring, finding themselves, etc., etc. Indigo has so much control over literally everyone in her life. And it's... I'm not going to say more than that because those would be spoilers, but this book... Oh, also, plot twist. I had like a feeling that it was going to happen, but at the same time I did not see it coming. And it's so... Oh, it's not horror. Rather, you know, it's gothic. For any of you who have read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, the kind of feeling you get when Jane, you know, explores the manor, and when she hears the noises and the weird occurrences, this is very much it. And there are a lot of references to Narnia as well in this book, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on my channels a lot, but Narnia is such a huge part of my childhood. Don't come at me, I have not read the books yet. I know it's so bad. My parents and I would often do like Friday night movie night type of stuff, where my mom would make pizza, or there would be a very specific meal that she would make on every Friday, and we would watch a movie together. And Narnia was often like either the first movie or the second or whatever. And it holds a very, very important place in my heart because I have so many good memories associated to it. And so it actually does refer to Narnia in the book. Like, for example, they talk about Castaway Susan. I won't say anything about that for those of you who are not familiar with Narnia, but for those of you who are, you probably know what Castaway Susan means. And so they talk about that in here. So not only is the story itself fantastic, it's nothing like I've ever read before, but at the same time it felt kind of like, you know, when you read a book that has very similar tropes or genres to what you're used to, you have this sense of comfort in reading something that you're familiar with. This was out of my comfort zone, but at the same time I was able to find comfort in the way that the world of Fae was depicted in the book, because I read the Folk of Air series. And while they're very different, there's still this element of like Fae politics and the offerings that you bring to Fae. And then there's the actual writing. I have never read anything by Roshani before. I am going to be fixing that this year. Her writing is so good. It's incredible. For those of you who have read, I can never remember, Alone in the Other with You? Alone with You in the Other? It's Alone with You in the Other. The writing is very similar. The writing is rather deep, but easy to understand. See, I read another Olivia Blake book this month. I read The Atlas Six, and I found that the writing compared to Alone with You in the Other is very different. It's still similar, but in the Atlas Six, there were so many like scientific ideas and theories, and there was a lot of information to process on top of. The writing is more intricate, you know, so it was a little bit harder to read than Alone with You in the Other. And so that's why I'm comparing this to Alone with You in the Other, because the writing is very similar in that sense that it feels very poetic, but it's still easy to follow what's going on. Obviously, there are moments in here that I was completely lost as to what was going on, but it was still easy to like catch up after a little while. And just because I can't help myself, I'm going to read you a couple of my favorite quotes. It's not going to give you any spoilers, don't worry. Okay, I just flipped to a random one here. Pain is inexplicably vital to us. It pins us to the very fabric of our lives, that which joy and comfort and warmth have made alien and foreign. Pain speaks to us in a voice that carries the hollowed certainty of hymns. I know exactly what you deserve, and I shall give it to you. And that's the writing of the book throughout the entire thing. And, you know, like, I am scared of you, she said in a quiet voice. You terrify me, and that is how I know I love you. But you're not scared of me at all, are you? It's just, oh, it's brilliant. That's all I can say. And there's a little bit of romance in here. This is an adult novel, so it's not YA. We do get the flashbacks from when they were kids, but even when they were kids, it is not, it's far from being YA, you know what I mean? The main plot of this is not the romance, so don't go in reading this expecting like a romance, you know? There's a lot of attention brought to the importance of love, both platonic and romantic. So that's all I'm gonna say for this, because I think I've literally spent like 15 minutes talking about this book, so. Then after that, I went in my bookshelf at home and I picked a completely random book without knowing what it was about. And I chose An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. And let me tell you, I did not expect to read one of my absolute favorite books of all time when I picked this up. I bought this in 2021, I think, because I read Sorcery of Thorns in the summer of 2021. And I really enjoyed Margaret's writing. Sorcery of Thorns was not like, it's not one of my favorite books, but it is a really good book nonetheless. But this, I personally found this to be spectacular because, again, it is set in the world of Fae, and I have an obsession. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but I am really obsessed with all things Fae. It's just, they're the love of my life. I just love everything about it, whether it just be Fae politics or the offerings. I've always been very interested in any sort of myth, honestly. I was gonna be a classics minor when I started university, so I was absolutely I am incredibly passionate about Greek myth, but fairies, like, they own my heart. So basically, Isabel is a very talented painter, and she's a normal girl. Okay, she's a normal girl living amongst how do they call them? The fair folk. So basically, you know, Fae. And so she is a normal girl living in the world of Fae. And so the fair folk often come to her to get their paintings done because they're a self-centered type of people. And so one day, the Autumn Prince comes to see Isabel, and there are a lot of rumors and myths about this prince. And his name is Rook. When he gets there, immediately there's a connection between the two. Not only do they develop a friendship, but there's also, you know, there's chemistry, there's a connection. Over the time that Isabel paints his portrait, she commits a crime by painting a human / mortal emotion in his eyes. Sorrow. Oh, I swear this book was so good. When Rook gets his painting, he gets accused and all this stuff. They switch to friends to enemies. You know, just for a little bit. He comes to her and he's like, I'm taking you with me. You need to stand trial for your crimes. I need to make sure my image is not tarnished further, you know? And so they start their journey towards, I think it's in the Autumn Court that they have to go, something like that. Anyways, they start their journey in the forest and there is a bunch of stuff that happens. And as they go through the journey, obviously the chemistry cannot be ignored. They get closer and closer and very, very much closer. It's one of my favorite like forbidden love stories because the fair folk cannot fall in love with humans or mortals, but they go against the odds. So the writing itself is it's super good. It's great writing. It's not anything that is like out of this world, but it is very easy to read. It is also a very comforting read, I found, again, for me. And there are a lot of funny scenes, a lot of cute scenes, there's a lot of tension, there is some really good like action in there as well. Overall, I rated this 5 stars, and it is definitely a book that I would reread just for the sake of like comfort and going back to a world that I love. I would not reread the entire thing though. That's kind of what separates a 5-star read to an infinity read for me. Infinity, I would reread the entire thing over and over and over again. Whereas 5 stars is more like I'll flip through my annotations and, you know, reread certain chapters that I really liked and so on. I just love Rook and Isabel so much. And he falls first. So, I really, really recommend it. Alright, next book that I read in January is Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I've had this book since 2020. Oh boy, I read a lot of books that I've had for a very long time while I was home because the majority of my books are back at home because I don't have the space for all of them here. But I chose to start this one because I was missing Pirates of the Caribbean, another movie franchise that is my entire childhood. I love Pirates of the Caribbean as well as Johnny Depp. I've mentioned this in my book haul that I posted last week. The man owns my heart, okay? But this is, it's actually written at the top here. Readers should rejoice because we now have a Lady Jack Sparrow on our hands. That is what it is. Alosa, oh, I love her so much. And I read this so quickly. It's so good. So basically Alosa is the captain of her own ship. Her father is the pirate king, and so he sends her on a mission to find the missing piece of a map. So part of the plan is for her to get captured by an enemy ship which would have the missing piece of the map. And so when she gets captured, she meets Raiden. Oh my god. Why did it make me think of Flynn Rider? But anyways, she meets Raiden. He is the little brother of the ship's captain. And so he's supposed to be like, you know, he's supposed to be the keeper of the prisoner. He's not supposed to get close to her, but they do. There's inevitable chemistry between the two. And it starts off as purely enemies. And then they're kind of like frenemies, I guess we could say. And then you get to a little bit more tension. I admire Alosa so much, and there are a lot of like interesting twists and turns in the book, and it is book 1 in a duology. I got the second book, which again showed that in my book haul, and I am so excited to read it. But I rated this 4.5 stars. Why did I rate it 4.5? I guess I did find there were some parts that were like stretched out a little bit too long, but it was not something that was like super frustrating or like yikes, she really should have just like completely cut that out. It made me so happy, and I just know that fans of the Pirates of the Caribbean would absolutely love this. So if you're looking for a pirate love story. Well, it's not a love story. It's really like romance is a subplot to it, but it's a really good romance. It's not just they share a few glances and, you know, their fingers brush and they fall in love. No. It's a very good enemies to lovers, although it is not the main plot. What I've realized from being a bookish influencer is that what I say about books, and what every single reviewer out there will say about a book, is that it's gonna affect the way that other readers are gonna read said book. And that is why I really prioritize not going in too deep when I'm talking about a book. Not just in a sense of like going into deep and giving you guys spoilers, but in the sense that I don't want to go in too deep and kind of, I guess, put a filter on your view of the book. Does that make sense? I think it does. But anyways, I don't know what I rambled on about right there, but I hope it made sense. But this was such a good book and I cannot wait to read the next one. After that, I read the book that I don't have here, and that is The Shadows Between Us, also by Trisha Levenseller. I didn't even see the name until I started reading The Shadows Between Us, and I was like, oh my god, won't you look at that? It's the same author as Daughter of the Pirate King. I'm not gonna lie, when I started the book, I did not like the female main character. I did not like her, that's all I'll say. But it is a book where there's a lot of character development and self-growth. She starts off as very, you know, like she's focused on the money, she's focused on marrying a man who will bring her money and acknowledgement, and so her full attention is set on the Shadow King so that she can marry him and kill him so that she becomes the queen and has control over everything. But of course, when she actually gets to meet the Shadow King, she gets to know him, she gets to fall in love with him, and she also gets to find herself along the way. And so she's a character that is very, you know, selfish, self-centered, a little bit obnoxious in the start of the book. But then as she spends time with the Shadow King, she becomes someone that is more selfless, still focused on her own benefits, you know, like her own well-being, but she also cares about others. It's also great to see how a character goes from having no kind of empathy and then they develop into someone that does. And that's kind of what you see in The Shadows Between Us. I will say it's not a spectacular book. It is a quick book to get through, and it is still, like, it keeps you entertained. I will say maybe like the first 100 pages or so, I was not like fully submerged, nor was I really invested in it. I did consider switching books a couple of times, but I just told myself, let's keep going, because maybe this will be promising, you know, like maybe it'll be really good. So I rated it 4 stars, and I still think I would still recommend it. Again, this is this whole thing about social media affecting the expectations of readers. It was kind of marketed as an enemies to lovers. It's not. It's really not. It's more like strangers to friends to lovers. They become literally like best friends. And there's still like that little element of like enemies type of tension, but it is not an enemies like knife to throat type of relationship. And it is very unfortunate that it has been promoted as such, because a lot of people went in expecting enemies to lovers and now they're disappointed, and that affects the rating. But it's not enemies to lovers. Yes, they're not like, when they meet, they're not best friends right away. They're very, you know, hesitant about each other. So there is that kind of, I guess, that part of their relationship could be seen as enemies to lovers, but don't expect that in this book. Expect something that is easy, that is entertaining, that has a nice romance. Apparently there's gonna be another book. I'm not sure. I thought it was a standalone, but apparently there's another one coming out. I don't know if they're like separate or if the story follows. And I might be wrong. I recommend it if you're looking for like, you know, an easy fantasy to just to read something, not because like you're absolutely craving this specific type of story and you want something life-changing, and just if you're looking for a fantasy to read and stay entertained, I would recommend that one. Okay, next book that I read The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This story was so good. Oh my god. Okay. Fun fact about me, Helen Huang is the author that introduced me to cartoon cover romances and spicier books through her debut novel, The Kiss Quotient. I don't remember when I read that. I know that it has been many years. I don't know how many, but I think I was back in high school when I read that. I can't fully recall. And I didn't expect it to have like those explicit scenes. It had a cartoon cover on it and I was like, oh, it's gonna be super cute. I was introduced to the deceivingness of cartoon covers when I was younger. The Heart Principle, oh, it was so good. I don't exactly think The Heart Principle or The Kiss Quotient that one or the other is better. I have not read The Bride Test yet. I do have it. I know that I read them out of order. Please don't come at me. But this was my book club book with my Rainy Days Call for Romance book club. The club that I created this year where we only read romance. And it was so fun to read it with other people. It was so fun to see their reactions as well. So this story revolves around Anna's son. She is a violinist. And she had a YouTube video go absolutely viral, which kind of, you know, kickstarted her very famous career, but she's having a hard time playing and finding herself satisfied with the way she plays. And she's been in a relationship with this guy for a while, and then one night he proposes that they have an open relationship because he thinks she's the one, but he wants to make sure that he hasn't missed out on anything else. Yeah. Oh god. And so that leads to Anna being like, okay, you want to do that? I'm gonna do it too. I'm gonna download a dating app and I'm gonna find someone. And then she finds someone. She finds Quan. He's a tattooed motorbike riding hottie. He does have, you know, some sad stuff happened in his life before he met Anna. And so when they meet for the first time for just like a one-night stand, it doesn't work. And then the second time, it doesn't work. And then the third time, it doesn't work. And it's just because they've grown so close that they're now like best friends. They're starting to find that they want an actual relationship. And then a tragedy strikes Anna's family, and that kind of gets them separated a little bit because she has to spend a lot of time back at home. And it's such a good love story. It's both a very cozy, sweet, heartbreaking, and eye-opening book. It's so great to see how both characters grow. I found that towards the end, it's very raw, you know, it's very open, it's very realistic. So when you read this, don't expect to like fully escape into this adorable love story, because there's a lot of realism in here. There's a lot of real life stuff that happens in here. I think this is something that should be talked about more in reviews and in like book recommendations, is that sometimes books are very realistic. You know, like many of us read to escape reality, but it's important to take into consideration that some books are reality, you know, like we can't read those and have a mindset of like, oh, I'm escaping into another world. Yes, you're escaping into a fictional story, but you're not escaping into another world when you read books like these, because this addresses very real, serious topics, you know? But I rated this 4.5 stars. Again, it was so fun to read with the book club. We have started our February book, and this is going to be another very realistic fiction romance type of book. I have a feeling we're gonna be crying together for quite some time, but it's so fun to see. The book club is growing. I do have a link in my description if you'd like to join. It is on Fable. It's entirely free to join, and we can annotate the ebook together on there. We can see each other's annotations. We can also chat in each chapter chat room. It's so fun, and I just feel like reading any book with others is so fun. I love it so much. And especially since this is a go at your own pace club, you don't have the pressure of like, oh crap, I need to go to club and have this done by this date. You have the entire month to read and finish the book, so you're all good. I think it was a really good book to start off this club with, and I am so glad that I read it, and I strongly recommend it. For fans of Helen Huang, if you've read her work before and haven't read this one yet, I really recommend it. And for any romance reader out there who likes to shed a couple tears, this one is really good. Now, I don't even want to talk about this book. I don't even want to touch it. That's a little bit extra. But Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. I read this for class, for a course that I dropped a few weeks ago. This is disgusting. It is so incredibly sexist, gross. It's when I read books like these that I'm like, I don't ever want to read a book written by a man. I don't even want to talk about it all that much because I don't want to recommend this to you guys. But basically a 52-year-old professor who is divorced, he is filled with desire but is lacking in passion. I'm quoting the back right now. So basically this 52-year-old man is going to, like, he goes to this agency to hook up with women, you know, like, I don't know what those are called, escorts, something like that. And then one day he sees the woman he's been seeing at this agency, like, in real life, and she stops agreeing to see him, and then he gets obsessed with her, and then he tries to reach out to her again, and then he sees one of his students on campus, and they start an affair, and then he gets kicked out of the university, and then he goes to live with his daughter, and then they're attacked, and her daughter is abused, and it's just, this was not, it was not fun to read. I didn't really learn anything. I rated this 1 star. Like, that, I actually posted on TikTok a video of me, like, reacting to it. It's just, this 52-year-old man tells to his student who he is sleeping with, oh my god, he actually says, "Tell daddy what's wrong." Can't believe I said that. Please don't read it. Or if you want to be like, if you want to laugh at how bad it is, like, just go in a library and just flip through it. It's horrendous. The fact that this is a winner of a Nobel Prize. Is this book or the author a winner? I will be returning this to the campus bookstore. That didn't take too long now, did it? Next book I read was The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. This was another book club book, this time for my Tabby's annotating book club, and I rated this 3.75 stars. I will start off by saying that I was not in the right headspace to read this book. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a whole lot more had I read it like in the summer when I wasn't like in university or reading books for university, because this felt like the content in this book is very intricate. It's very, like, there's a lot of big words, there's a lot of, it talks a lot about physics, a lot about the concept of time, and I just, first off, the font is really, like, it's pretty small, and the book is, you know, relatively big, you know, it's, yeah. And it took me so long to read this that I got out of it after a while. I will say, like, the last 100 pages or so was really, really good. Really intriguing, really, like, I got submerged into the story, but it took me over 300 pages to actually get into the story, which for me, like, that's a no-go. But the plot is it's a really good idea, and I'm a little bit bummed out that I wasn't able to fully enjoy it. I might give it another try this summer, and I will still keep on going with the series. I do really want to read the Atlas Paradox because this does end in a cliffhanger, and I'm really curious to know what happens afterwards. So I still gave it 3.75 stars because the writing is very poetic, even if it's hard to get into it. I find that what I realized with this book is that if I'm reading something that, like, the writing is poetic and it contains a lot of, like, intricate topics, I can't follow all that well. I mean, I can follow, but it takes me longer to process what's going on. And it was great that I was annotating this because I was able to, you know, write down my questions, write down my theories, and not just be like reading and thinking like, okay, what's going on here, what's going on there, and just having my thoughts ramble in with the words that I was reading. That's something I love about annotating. When you write down what you're thinking, it kind of gets that out of your head so you can focus on the words better. At least that's what it does for me. I don't know about anyone else, but for me that's one of the benefits. It is, you know, it was a BookTok famous book, and I'm glad that I finally read it. I'm glad that I finally gave it a chance, but it did not meet my expectations. I realized that I didn't really tell you what this book is about. I guess I just kind of expect most of you to know what it is because it was so popular. But basically it's that each decade there are 6 of the most uniquely talented magicians that are selected to earn a place in the Alexandrian Society, the foremost secret society in the world. And then only 5 of them will be chosen to keep going. And it is mind-blowing in a sense, but it could have been shorter, and I wish I'd read it with the right mind space. Afterwards, we've got another book for class. This was for my forest ecofiction class, and this was actually really good. It is The Word for World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. This was really good. It's a sci-fi book, which I'm not much of a sci-fi reader, honestly. I love fantasy, but sci-fi is not something that I usually venture into. But this book was really, really interesting, and the writing was, I will say I got confused a couple times, but that is why I love to annotate so much. It's helped me to, you know, get my questions down on paper and get my theories down on paper as well. So basically, Earth no longer has any trees, and so humans are going onto like these other planets across space to chop down their wood and use their wood. And then on these planets, on this planet where they're going right now to chop all the wood, are the Athshians. I don't know if that's how, I can't remember how my professor pronounced it. Athshians? Ashthians? Ashthians? Can't remember. But anyways, apparently the Ashthians and the humans have some kind of mutual ancestor, so they're slightly related, but the Ashthians basically represent the forest and the humans represent humans. And you get to see how, I don't even know how to explain this. Basically this book is just saying that humankind is messed up for killing the forests, and it is providing a voice for nature and the forest through the Ashthians. And the writing is not the type of writing that I'm familiar with. I have not read much of Le Guin outside of university, but I really enjoyed this. And as someone who is very close with nature, someone who like I grew up around trees and rivers and the ocean, and I did not grow up in a big city. I grew up in a very small town where nature is everywhere. So I don't know, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. I would not have read it had it not been for my class, but I'm really, really glad I did. And I'm sorry if I didn't give it like a better description. I just kind of don't know what to say. But basically the humans go on this planet, they force the Ashthians into servitude, and then the Ashthians find themselves at the mercy of their brutal masters. And the Ashthians, led by Selver, retaliate against their captors, abandoning their strictures against violence. But in defending their lives, they have endangered the very foundations of their society. It's a very interesting book. After I finished reading the Atlas 6, I just knew, because I was reading the Atlas 6 and The Word for World is Forest at the same time. because I promised myself that I would still work on my course readings, but I would still make time to read for myself. And so after I finished the Atlas 6, I just knew I was about to be in a slump. And whenever that happens, my immediate remedy is to read a Mariana Zapata book. So I read Culty by Mariana Zapata. Oh my god. She never fails. She never fails. The slow burn was slow burning. Oh, it was so good. So basically Culty is a soccer sport. It's a sports romance. It is soccer. And so Sal is a professional soccer player, and then Culty, like one of the best soccer players ever seen in the entire world, becomes her coach. And she's looked up to him her entire life, and he's the reason she started playing soccer and yada yada. But he's such a grump, and he's not good with people, and he's not really good at coaching. And so at first, like, they don't talk, they don't really interact, and then they start to interact, and then they start to get closer, and then they start, you know, playing together, and he becomes a better coach. But then they also become best friends, and it is Grumpy Sunshine, age gap. He's 13 years older than her. There's obviously, it's a slow burn, it's Mariana Zapata, it is to be expected. Don't go in here expecting a first kiss within 100 pages. It takes about, the first kiss is about here. You know, like in her books, that's how long it takes. And I absolutely understand that for some people, it is not your cup of tea, and that is so fine. But for me, I love how, like, for me this is very realistic. I know that some books you'll get the first kiss within 100 pages because it skips time. But in Mariana Zapata's books, you don't really skip time. You see how time, you know, advances, and you see how their relationship advances in a very realistic kind of, why was I gonna say schedule? In a very realistic kind of timeline. But I'm a huge fan of slow burn, like really, really, really slow burn. So MZ is always it for me. I rated this 5 stars, of course. It is not my absolute favorite MZ book, but Culty is one of my absolute favorite book boyfriends ever. How does he call her again? He's German, so he calls her, you know, like some of them call them love or honey, you know, like words of affection. He calls her my little Schneschke. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's a German word, but the second I saw it, I just knew, like, okay, this has to be a word of affection. I looked it up, and oh, it's so cute. Okay, I won't say anything else, but it's really sweet. There's delicious tension, and they become best friends. And he says it. She's my best friend. And yes, I cried a little bit. Just, you know, just a tiny bit. It's, and the family aspect of it, again, Mariana Zapata really does such a good job with portraying family in her books. And I say this in a lot of my videos when I talk about her books, but I am very, very family oriented. Again, I'll say it again, my parents are my best friends. I'm very, very close with my parents, and I could not be more grateful that I do have this relationship with them. And so to have books where I see this kind of relationship in them, it's just it's heartwarming, and it makes me very happy. And I really, really recommend it. And then, can you believe we are at the end? The last book that I read in January, I started it one night and then I finished it the next afternoon. It is Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. And this is my very first Devney Perry book. It will not be my last. I was halfway through the book and I already ordered the second book in this series. It's a standalone series, you know? So the series is The Edens. There are 6 siblings, and each book follows the story of each separate sibling, but they're all interconnected. And Indigo Ridge is the very first book in the series. And so this is a romance, but it's also like a mystery book at the same time. I will say it is fade to black, which I was not expecting. I thought there was going to be like some spice in there, but there is really, really good tension. And there is explicit description, but it's very fade to black. So it's not like, I would rate this maybe like 1.5 hot pepper or 2, maybe. I don't know. So basically this book follows Winslow Covington, who is the granddaughter of the mayor in Quincy in Montana. And so she moves there after she gets accepted as the new sheriff for the town. And on her first night there, she goes out to a bar and she hooks up with this guy called Griffin. Turns out Griffin is one of the Edens, and she had made herself this promise that she wasn't gonna, you know, mingle with anyone from town because she didn't want it to tarnish her reputation as the new sheriff. And then after the hookup, they come across each other, and then they realize like, oh, okay, she wasn't a tourist and he wasn't from out of town. He's an Eden and she's the new sheriff. So you kind of see how they're like, okay, this can't happen again. And then it happens again. And then they have to work together because one of their own in Quincy dies and near Indigo Ridge, which is on the property of the Edens. And so you the entire story follows Winslow trying to solve this case because it was marked off as a suicide, but she feels like it's more. She thinks it's a murder. And so we see her trying to figure this out, and then she gets closer with Griffin, and then the two fall in love, and it's such a good relationship. There's a lot of communication, and there is no like 75% breakup. They communicate. They don't just get mad and storm off and break up. They communicate, which I love so much. And you could feel the tension just like seeping out of the pages, coming right at you. And it was, I couldn't put it down. I just wanted to keep going. I could not put it down. I will say maybe the first 50-ish pages are kind of slow to get into, but then they find the body, and then stuff starts to pick up a little bit more, and then their relationship between Winslow and Griffin starts to pick up a little bit more, and it's such a good book, and I'm so excited to keep reading the series. The second book is about Knox, Griffin's brother, and Knox is a chef. I love a man who can cook, but I always love reading books about like any romance book that's like a restaurant romance. I love it so much because one of my favorite movies that my mom made, she didn't make me watch it, but she was watching it, I remember, when I was a kid, and I watched it along with her. And is it No Reservations? Yes, okay, No Reservations. This is the movie. This movie, I love it so much, and it doesn't have anything to do with Indigo Ridge, but I think that's kind of where my love for like restaurant romances kind of came from. I don't know, but I'm so excited to keep on going with the series, and this was so good. It was a very easy book to read. It wasn't too much of like a heavy on the mind type of mystery thriller thing, but it was very captivating. I was intrigued, I was curious, I had a bunch of theories, I was really invested, and the romance was a really nice touch to it as well. So this, 5 stars, and I would absolutely reread this, although maybe not the entire thing, but I would definitely reread it because I did not see the ending coming. I did not see that. That was a good plot twist. I will give it that. Time for the thumbnail. Alright, well, those were the books that I read in January, and like I did in my previous wrap-ups, I'm gonna have to choose which one was my favorite, and it's pretty easy. It has to be The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. Truly, this book was so good. I cannot wait for you guys to read it once it releases. I am so grateful that I had such a good reading month, and I cannot wait to keep you guys posted on what February will have looked like by the end of February. Anyways, I have some meetings to go to and some food to make before said meetings, so I'm gonna get going. If you've read any of these, let me know. If you haven't, I recommend most of them. Not all of them. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for taking the time to watch my content. If you liked it, it would mean the world if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, it would also mean so much to me if you subscribed. That way you could join the little Raindrops family. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you guys in the next one.